It's kind of weird way up there, isn't it, man? It's like I'm smiling next to your crotch there. There we go. All right, there you go.
Right, thank you for joining us. This is the Lawyer Dana Show live from CPAC, and we have a very special guest, Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs and
Baltimore.
And Baltimore. And your grandfather's son, or grandson, that is.
I'm a grandson. I'm a son. I'm a brother, and yeah, I am the Dirty Jobs guy. That's all true.
And the smoothest voice in television, I think.
You know what? Opinions vary, but some things you can take credit for, and some things.
Did you work on that, or is this just a gift from God because you're?
Well, last I heard, all gifts were from God.
That's true.
Or it was,
Mike.
It was weird for me, honestly. I had a stammer when I was a kid.
Did you?
Yeah, not a full-on like Porky Pig stutter, but I was very shy and I didn't talk much. But my voice changed at an early age, and I was really lucky to have a teacher who cured my stammer, literally.
How?
Well, a couple things happened. His name was Fred King. He's a music teacher, and of course you can't stammer when you're singing, So I could carry a tune, so I was always attracted to music. But he was also a theater guy, and he insisted that I audition for a play. And I really loved it. He was my mentor. I trusted this guy so much. And
is he still around?
No, he died the day I launched MikeRoweWorks. It was Labor Day in 2008, actually. But this was way back in 1980. And he made me memorize a monologue and audition for a play. And I told him, I said, Fred, this is never going to work. I'm never going to get through this. And he said, just try it. And sure enough, I got 20 seconds into it, and I'm fits and starts, and I'm just really struggling. And he said, hey, Mike, I love what you're doing with the character here, but the character doesn't stutter. Do that on your own time. Try it again from the top without all the hoopty-doo.
Sounds like some of my coaches.
Unbelievable. Like you couldn't do that. You get fired today for doing that. But it didn't embarrass me at all. I trusted him so much at that point. I just did what he told me. And about 30 seconds into the second take, I'm not stammering. And he looks at me and kind of gives me a shrug, as if to say, hey, maybe you should act like a guy who doesn't stutter for a while. See how that goes.
Brilliant.
And that was that.
That's all it took.
That was it. Now, to be fair, I didn't have a physiological problem that bedevils a lot of people with stammers. I was just painfully. I was shy. I was just crazy.
When I was younger.
The phone. My mother still tells the story today. The phone, the doorbell would ring. The dogs would start barking, and I'd dive under a table or hide in a closet. I just couldn't bear this idea that, oh my God, who could it be? Who's at the door? What's happening? I just didn't want anything to do with that.
Do you still have aspects of being shy?
Maybe.
Does it take a conscious decision to overcome it?
For a long time, I impersonated a host. Like before Dirty Jobs.
That's what I'm doing now.
Well, hey, I'm buying it, man. I think it's going pretty well.
Thank you.
No, I truly spent 15 years working for every cable network, doing every imaginable pilot or sitcom stuff, talk shows, all that. And I knew I was acting, or at least not acting, but I was imitating, right? I was doing my version of Dick Clark or my version of whomever in my mind, because it just was kind of how I approached things. Dirty Jobs was different. I wasn't a host of Dirty Jobs. I was a guest. I was
low man on the totem pole.
Well, I was an apprentice. Yeah, and so all of the pressure and all the pretense that I had previously associated with the business of hosting went away when I stopped thinking as a host and started thinking of myself as a cipher, an avatar for the. It's funny. I'm sure that many things have happened to people in similar ways when you when you think differently about either who you are or what you do, then the world sort of comes into a different sort of focus, and everything changes.
I'm a competitive skeet shooter as well,
Mm-hmm.
and I've got two really great coaches, and they tell me when you stop paying attention to score and you start paying attention to process, your score will improve.
So Fred King, among the many things he did for me in the course of just being a music teacher, he had an expression that you'll appreciate. It was what, not how. What, not how. And what he meant by that was every time he screwed up, every time he either made a mistake on stage or really in just about any pursuit, it was when he started thinking not about what he was doing, but how he was doing. When he started keeping score, when he started evaluating his performance. And it was a really valuable check for him just to say, nope, what, not how. Like nothing good ever happens.
Right.
When you start thinking about like, how is this interview going right now? He seems to be enjoying it. He seems to be listening. I wonder if anybody, the minute you start asking yourself those questions.
That's me trying to be out there and look at what we're doing.
Yeah.
If I do that, I'm no longer
You're no longer here. And now I'm just looking at it's a really nice suit, by the way.
Thank you.
That's a lot of blue, man.
It is.
This
is my wife's favorite suit.
Is it sky blue or robin's egg or what would we a royal blue? What is that?
You know, for being the dirty jobs guy, you should would think I would be the one that would know the color of my own suit.
You know what, man? I think it might be periwinkle, but you didn't hear it from me.
You know, I would love to know. Yeah. There's a guy that actually made it for me. He's probably screaming to the camera right now because I bet he's watching it.
Well, you know what? When he was making it, I bet he was focused on what he was doing.
He was.
And not how he was doing it.
He was.
It's no joke, especially if you're shooting skeet, because now you're armed.
Have you ever shot?
Yeah. I not regularly, and this will sound unapologetically vainglorious, but I'm rather good at it.
Are you?
Yeah.
You should compete.
Well,
and
I mean,
participate competitively a little bit.
I shoot a couple times a year, and the reason I do is I was trying to make a deal with Caterpillar. I wanted them to sponsor my foundation, and I wanted them to hire me because I thought it'd be good to make some money. And
I would think that they would go, sure.
Well, they got there, but it was a process.
Did you have to go skeet shooting with them in order to make it out? Did you really?
Well, I didn't have to, but we kind of made a nice little deal, and I wanted them to take a more active role in my foundation. And the CEO at the time was a guy called Doug Oberhelman, kind of a big deal down there in Peoria where they're headquartered. And we had a nice lunch with his executive team. Then he said, we're going to go shoot some skeet. Why don't you come along? And I said, yeah, sure. I'd shot before, not much, but enough to, understand the basics of it. And, when you get in the zone, like when it's like when you can't miss, you're just in it. I saw it. I saw
the target, and the target just breaks.
Yes, that's exactly it. There was no conscious aim, pull. It was all very Borg-like, it was like singularity, And
it's a zen.
Dude,
it is my happy place.
I never missed. We were standing outside. He had an F-150, and he had one of those automatic launchers in the back, and guys were just feeding it. And we were shooting until the guns got hot and then swapping out again and just shooting and shooting and shooting.
Nice.
And eventually he just looked at me and said, all right, how much you want?
It's the dirty jobs version of golf. I'm the only, not the only, but one of the very, very few lawyers who you don't put a golf club in my hand.
What?
Like,
bad?
Horrible. Like I've never been taught right.
Yeah.
And when I learned how to shoot skeet, I happened to learn from literally the best two instructors in the world.
No, that's it.
It was like learning golf from Tiger Woods and Tiger Woods' coach for 4 days private. It was supposed to be 5 guys. The other 4 guys don't show up. And they did a private with me.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of it, I was like, I'm like the lawyer that wants to kind of learn how to play golf to not embarrass myself on the course. I've liked shooting. It's always been fun. So I'm going to take this course. After I went in, and then I realized, you ever seen The Matrix?
Oh, sure.
Or no, Fight Club.
Oh, yeah.
You know the moment where Ed Norton realizes he's Tyler Durden?
Right. Yeah.
That happened to me. I had that surreal moment. And because I didn't know who it was. Todd Bender and Lanny Basham. Lanny Basham, gold medalist in the Olympics. Todd Bender, 26-time world champion, living skeet shooter in American skeet, besides Vincent Hancock, who is the 4-time gold medal winning, one of the greatest Olympians in the history of the United States, who just won this past year. And at the end of the first hour, so I go in, I'm just going to not embarrass myself on the golf course equivalent. To the end of the first hour, they go, so what are your goals in this? And I go, I think I want to win a couple of world championships and then go to the Olympics. I've won 2 world championships, and I'm working to go to the Olympics in that sport.
That is so obnoxious, man. I mean, that's almost as obnoxious as I interviewed Jack Carr, the terminalist guy who, so he had 2 dreams his whole life, to be a Navy SEAL and to be a best-selling author. After 20 years of being a Navy SEAL, he comes home and he writes The Terminalist. And then Chris Pratt stars in it. And now he's got 8 books, maybe 10 at this point. So the guy just saw it and visualized it and then did it. But I'm going to go back to that moment in Fight Club, because it's really interesting. You misspoke when you said The Matrix first, but it's the same story. Like the moment when Neo realizes he's in the Matrix, and everything he thought he knew about his life was wrong, right? It's the moment in The Sixth Sense when Bruce Willis, spoiler alert, realizes this little kid's not crazy. He really can see me because he sees dead people. Oh my God, I've been dead the whole movie, right? Aristotle called those moments peripetias, and he said all great stories, all great narratives are informed by a series of discoveries, which are called anagnorises, leading to a very specific kind of discovery, which is called a peripetia, where the protagonist comes face to face with the inescapable truth of his own life. And when that truth changes the direction of the story, it changes the identity of the man, and that takes the viewer on a ride. So I love looking for peripeties and peripetias, because the most interesting people have them. The best stories all have them. And obviously they're not always pleasant. When Oedipus realizes in Act 5, the great king of Thebes, that this woman that he's in love with, has raised his kids with, is also his mother. Huh? That'll change your deal, dude. That's your story.
That's one of those zoom in, zoom out.
It's like wah, 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 wah. Right.
That's a real surreal moment in time.
And by the way, that moment you're talking about, that was Fincher who directed that, right? So he's got his camera on a dolly, and he is pushing in toward Norton's face at the same time he's zooming out. So you get this effect, or it might be vice versa, but either way it works. The world seems to be rushing by you at light speed when you try and get up to speed with the fact that everything you thought you knew was wrong.
Totally different.
Yeah.
And since that last year, this was 2 years ago that this happened.
Mm.
And last year I shot the most number of competitive American skeet targets in the world.
That's so great.
I also own a law firm that I do.
So then what's your business card actually say? What is your identity? Like mine went from host to guest. What's yours?
It's not often that somebody asks me a question that I don't have a quippy comeback for, or come up with something pretty quickly.
So that's why I'm here.
Maybe this is my peripetia.
Could be. Maybe. Oh my God.
Maybe another one.
If we just found out live on the air that you don't know who you are, like who's the guest, who's the host, what is happening, who's the audience, for that matter, does anybody listen to this show? I don't know. Maybe not.
Oh
my God, what's happened? What's happened to us?
I didn't know you were here for my counseling session. Usually I'm the attorney and counselor at law. And
what sort of law?
Family law, estate planning, and probate.
Oh, really?
Primarily, so a divorce steakhouse with a family law and probate dessert course.
No amuse bouche.
Well, that's the initial consultation. I think that's what it is. Anybody coming in your family, anybody going out of your family.
Right.
Mostly going out.
Got it.
Love adoptions, but how many people are adopted versus how many people are divorced?
No, God,
our proportions are similar.
Not even close. Wow.
So we have softdivorce.com, harddivorce.com. It was an interesting experience. I really fundamentally detest divorce. And the last thing on earth, my wife, Summer, she's there in the red.
Mm-hmm.
She's the only person when I said my slogan of soft divorce, right when I came up with it. That was probably another peripetia.
Soft divorce.
Because divorce doesn't have to be so hard.
A kinder, gentler divorce.
But we also own harddivorce.com too, in case it is.
Oh, man. So,
and I've spent a lot of money to obtain healthydivorce.com, which is really what I meant by soft.
Right.
Because if you're skiing, you're worried about hitting the trees, right? You look at the trees, what are you going to do?
You're going to hit the tree.
You're going to hit the tree. Your car's spinning out. Where do you point the wheels? The direction that you want to go.
That's right.
And you're driving a NASCAR, making a left turn. What
riding
you doing
a horse.
now? Oh, riding a horse.
It's more profound there because, for me anyway, because you're sitting astride a living thing with its own brain.
And it senses you.
It knows. The horse will go where you look. Yeah. You look at the ground, you're liable to wind up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do you want to go? You look where you want to go. You focus on where it is that you want to go. All the pain, all the problems, that answers one question. Should you get a divorce, yes or no? Do you have a healthy marriage or not? If you can't make it work, then fine. What do we need to do to get you through the divorce process in the healthiest way possible? Those attorneys that say, "Oh, I'm a hooker.
Yeah,
I'll do whatever they pay me to do. I don't care if they're paying the bill. I'll do the work." I fundamentally disagree with that. I will not do that. We don't take clients that want revenge. I'm focused on how can we change their life and get them through this process in the healthiest way possible and let them begin the next chapter in their life in the healthiest way possible.
Interesting. Well, I do something similar with my foundation. Permission to turn this into a shameless plug?
Please do, because I want to talk to you about that. I also want to talk to you about the difference between trade school and the path that I took and why.
All right.
I'm a big fan of what you do, and I try and talk people out of going to law school a lot.
All right. Well, look, I don't know that I feel strongly that one path is worse than the other, and I say that only because I don't know who's listening, and I don't know individually what people might need to hear at any given point. But I do know this: to tell an entire generation of people that the best path for the most people is the most expensive path, a 4-year degree. That's crazy. And it's dangerous. And, when people ask, Mike, why did college get so expensive? How did that happen? I say, well, how could it not? We literally told an entire generation of kids that they were screwed if they didn't get a 4-year degree. Then we took shop class out of high school. Then we wound up with 7.6 million open jobs that don't require a 4-year degree that we can't fill for some reason. And now we got $1.7 trillion in student loans on the books. And we're still lending money we don't have to kids who are never going to be able to pay it back to train them for these jobs that don't exist anymore. So, my peripetia was realizing when Dirty Jobs was at its absolute height in 2008, that we had 2.5 million jobs that we couldn't fill, good jobs, and 12 million people out of work. And that's such a mismatch. And it's so bad for the country to have that kind of imbalance in the workforce.
And we've taught so many people to disrespect and not appreciate those great jobs.
Oh, all day long. We've turned them into vocational consolation prizes.
Right.
Right. So it's a whole second class citizen kind of thing going on. And anyway, my foundation exists mostly to make a more persuasive case for these opportunities that are going unfilled. But we also give away a couple $1 million every year in these work ethic scholarships, specifically for people who want to learn a trade. So they're not 4-year rides at all. It's not for university. It's plumbers, steam fitters, pipe fitters, welders, so many welders, mechanics, electricians, all the muscular trades, as Victor Davis Hanson would call them. And so we got $2.5 million this month at mikeroweworks.org for work ethic scholarships. First come, first served.
Wow. Every one of those jobs that you just listed are things that I love to do. I love working with my hands. I've loved woodworking. I never got to learn how to weld. I've soldered.
Yeah.
It's close as I've ever got. I love doing electrical. I love doing plumbing work. The path that I took, it's profitable now.
Yeah.
After 30 years, I just turned 50.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine. He tried the school path and he got really lucky because he was expelled from college after like 6 weeks. And he's always been richer than me.
Yeah.
Because he went out, he got a sales job, had to work, had a family early. And I started out, I worked my tail off to get through school. I waited tables.
Sure.
In law school, they say you're not supposed to work more than 10 hours a week. And you're not supposed to work at all your first semester. I worked 35 to 40 hours a week every single week of law school just to get through. Because I had enough with the maximum government loans and a scholarship in order to pay for the tuition. I had to pay for my own books, pay for my own living expenses, which I thought that shaped me very well.
Sure. Well, I bring it back to skeet shooting for a minute because, like you said, you were so lucky to have learned from two of the best.
Yeah.
And it's so important because the hardest part of learning a new thing is unlearning the bad habits.
Right.
So you didn't have any bad habits to unlearn.
Correct.
You were a blank slate.
Yes.
These guys came in like potters and picked up the clay and made something good.
I only know how to do it correctly.
That's it.
I don't know how to do it any other way.
Yeah. So there's so many corollaries with learning a skilled trade in that. And that's why apprenticeships are so important. And it's why trade schools are so important. And, you can spend a lot of time getting people to unlearn a bad habit. And it's also true in the white collar trade. How many bad lawyers do you know?
So a lot. And even more, it's with lawyers, you have the problem in hiring young lawyers at different levels, especially when I was a younger lawyer, like between year 5 and 10 was the hard part for me because they think they know a lot more than they do. And I've had a resume that I came in from a young lawyer. He goes, I've got extensive knowledge in this. And I literally wrote to him and said, look, I got to tell you this because you got to take this out of your resume. No young lawyer has extensive knowledge in anything. And you're disqualified from applying because you said that on this application.
Yeah.
Like you can try again, submit a new one to me, but they think that when they went to law school, they learned anything that's going to help them in the actual practice of law. You learn nothing. It's not an apprenticeship. It's not like going to trade school. It's a 3-year hazing that when you're done with that, then they let you take the next part, which is the test. Right. You then buy another separate course that actually teaches you the stuff you need to know for the bar exam.
Right.
At that point, you then are ready to start day one. And what I want to see in a brand new, never had a job as a lawyer, just got their license attorney, I want to see, I don't know why you would hire me, Dana, because I don't have any skills. I don't feel like I know anything. I'm like, you're perfect.
Yeah.
Because I need you to think that you know nothing, realize you know nothing. Let me teach you everything you really need to know. You need a 3 or 5 year apprenticeship, and then maybe I'll let you be supervised by one of our other attorneys, and then you're kind of ready to be on your own in that. And that's a 12-year process.
Yeah.
And in that time, You've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. You haven't earned any money. You haven't made any investments. You haven't. It's a 20-year path. The doctor, the lawyer, does not exceed. My buddy who got great on the job training have been earning money. Just invest. Richest man in Babylon, 10% of your money.
Sure.
Let yourself get some compound interest, which is I think the biggest piece missing.
Yeah.
And that everybody in the trades, if you have a great job with a trade and you teach them to just invest 10% and be putting that to the side and getting some compound interest, that path, it's almost impossible for me, no matter how much money I make, to overcome that. And especially the guys who go out and own their own company and be an entrepreneur in any of those trades.
Well, it goes the other way too. If you're talking about a bad habit, if you're talking about starting off on the wrong foot, it's all that plus $200,000 in student debt.
Yeah, you start negative.
You're right. And so paying that off, it will take decades.
It does take decades.
And it'll take decades off your life, and it'll rob you. It'll
It's highly stressful.
I remember, and I'm going to have to jump after this.
Sure.
Apparently we're at CPAC, and I got a speech to give somewhere.
Yeah.
But QVC, Cable Shopping Channel, right? I worked there. I was a host back in 1990, 91, 92 for a while. I had the overnight shift for a couple of years. Learned everything really I needed to know in TV while I was there. But the thing I'll never forget was how frustrated they were at recruiting. Like in the early days of that industry, you couldn't hire necessarily an actor or somebody with a lot of TV experience because that didn't mean they knew how to sell.
Right.
And you couldn't really hire an accomplished salesman who had never been in front of the camera before because they're gonna freak out and panic, right? So they tried everything, and in the end, by the time I auditioned for them, they had winnowed the whole thing down to, can you talk about pencil for 8 minutes by yourself? Now, they don't tell you it's 8 minutes. They just roll the pencil across the table, turn on a camera, and say, when the red light comes on, make me want the pencil, right? Don't stop talking. And if you can blather for 8 straight minutes, you get a 3-month probationary deal. And then if you survive that, they'll give you a contract. And that was the best they could do. And in hindsight, it really wasn't bad.
It's not a bad skills test.
But it's got, like, what do you do if you're a big organization and you're really struggling to recruit? And if you're struggling, for instance, like everybody wants work ethic, but how do you test for work ethic? I award work ethic scholarships. My foundation, my application process is a pain in the neck. You got to jump through some hoops. But if you're not willing to do that, that's fine, man. This particular pile of free money is probably not for you. You know? So if you can't talk about a pencil for 8 minutes, that's fine. This job is that you're not going to be happy here, right? Yeah. You're not going to be happy. So I think a lot of life is trying to figure out what the rules actually are. And then a chunk of life is trying to figure out which ones to follow. And then the rest is figuring out which ones to ignore. And then and that's really it. That's really it.
Hello.
That's how that guy's call did not go through.
Thanks for coming on.
What a pleasure,
show,
man.
Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's nice to meet you. Nice to talk with you. I'd be happy to talk with you anytime.
Terrific.
Again.
All right. Well, we'll reach out,
man. Ever do to help you out in the foundation. I'm a big fan.
Thanks.
I love what you do.
Well, I'm serious about the money. It's there. MikeRoweWorks.org. It's $2.5 million. Work ethic scholarships. Learn a skill. Master a trade.
Absolutely. Abundance in the United States. This is the Lawyer Dana Show. Thank you, Mike.
You bet.